put something into our apartment. I don't think it's going to leave. I'm not exactly sure where to turn with this. Paranormal forums don't seem to be any help. Most places on the internet just start talking about salt and iron and calling for Sam and Dean to fix the issue. This is real though, and it's getting worse. I'm fucking terrified. About a week ago, I came home late from work at my usual time. I usually get off around 10:30. My roommate Jackson works pretty early, so it's not uncommon to see him passed out on the couch. That night, though, he was wide awake, sitting, watching a scary movie with the lights off. I greeted him and tossed my keys on the table. But as I went to reach for the light, he turned and yelled at me, "Leave it off." I jumped back, startled. "What the fuck, man?" "Sorry." He settled back on the couch, his eyes turning towards the screen again. "We're just trying to enjoy the atmosphere of the movie." I looked around and didn't see anyone else in the room. Tension filled the air. "Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket," I joked, hoping to lighten things and make it feel normal again. Instead, he turned to me with wide, glassy eyes and corrected himself. "Me. I'm trying to enjoy the atmosphere of the movie." He slowly turned his head back towards the screen, where some mass killer who stalked his victim. A combination of the intensity in his eyes, the dark room, and the scary movie, and the way he reacted to my arrival, sent a shiver up my spine. It put a sick feeling in my stomach. "Whatever, man." I tried to shake it off. "See you in the morning." I walked away towards my room, but he didn't respond, his eyes glued on the screen as he silently watched the movie with a stiff, backed posture. I turned back to him one last time before I shut my door. I could swear I saw something out of the corner of my eye, standing next to the couch. I did a double take and it was gone. Instead, I noticed Jackson had turned his head towards me. His eyes were still glossy, and his mouth stretched itself into a toothy smile. I quickly shut my bedroom door and locked it. I flicked on my TV and put some random YouTube videos to hopefully distract me from what I just saw. Was he fucking with me? Trying to scare me? What the hell just happened? Jackson had always been a bit of a prankster. One time he had a vacuum in my room and set it up to an electrical switch on a timer. Damn thing went off at 3 in the morning and scared the shit out of me. That was funny though. This was not. I spent the rest of the night lying in bed staring at my TV, with his bizarre smile imprinted on my brain. I thought about getting up and confronting him, but before I knew it, I heard the TV shut off in the living room, and him go to his room, close the door. In the expectation I had of him coming to my door, knocking, and apologizing, explaining what had just happened, died. Instead, I decided to try and get some sleep. Ask him in the morning. Sure, it was weird, and yes, it creeped me out. But at the same time, I didn't realize I was living in what would become a nightmare. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I shrugged it off. I can hear you wondering why I didn't just book it right then and there. But the guy had been my roommate for 3 years. Barely any issues. He was a nice guy, with no history of anything weird as far as I knew. And it was much easier to assume it was a strange night, and that my eyes and brain were playing tricks on me after a long day at work. I convinced myself it was a badly timed joke on his part, and in time I fell asleep. The next morning I woke up to find Jackson sitting at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal and scrolling on his phone. I could smell coffee brewing in the pot. "Morning, dude," he said in his typical cheerful tone, not looking up from his breakfast. "Made coffee. Help yourself." "Morning." I side-eyed him as I walked through the kitchen. He shot me a confused look, shrugged his shoulders as he spooned some more cereal into his mouth. "Last night, dude. Not funny." I couldn't believe he was playing stupid with me. You actually freaked the hell out of me. He laughed and shook his head. "Sorry, man. I was just fucking with you. I guess the horror movie put me in a mood." I actually remember breathing a sigh of relief. I had figured he was messing with me, but hearing it confirmed made me feel a whole lot better. I don't mind a prank now and then, man. Just save it for when I'm not exhausted. I poured myself some coffee and started to head back towards my room to try and relax for my day off. "You got it, brother." He raised his bowl to me in a cheers and smiled a normal smile. But as I walked away, I heard his tone change. He spoke words that once again filled my gut with ice. "We'll try to be more considerate next time." "What did you just say?" I turned to him again. "Me?" he said, mouthful of cereal. "Nothing." "You definitely said something," I insisted. "Dude, you are being weird as hell." He got up and put his empty bowl in the sink. "Listen, I'm sorry I messed with you last night. I promise I didn't say shit though." Again, I knew what I heard, but he was convincing as hell. I was easy to trick that early in the morning into thinking I was just psyching myself out. There was no reason the guy would be gaslighting me. At worst, he was just messing with me, and if I told myself I just needed to let it go, everything would go back to normal, right? "I guess I'm still just tired and a little tweaked out from last night," I said to him. I sipped my coffee and headed towards my room again. "Sorry, man." "No worries," he said, heading towards his room as well. "Sorry I tweaked you with my joke." I thought that would be that, but 2 nights later, things got even worse. I woke up at about 1:30 to the sound of scratching at my door. It was like a dog begging to be let in, despite the fact that neither Jackson nor I had a dog. I wiped the sleep from my eyes and started to head to the door. With an intense focus, the sound continued. Small scratches, short and quick. It made me think a bit of scurrying rats gnawing on support beams in the walls. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could and got closer to the door. I pressed my ear to the wood and just could feel the vibrations of whatever was scratching on the other side. "Jackson," I called out, unsure if I was expecting a response. "What's up, man?" I heard right away, but not next to the door. He sounded like he was in the living room. I flung the door open. Nothing. Moonlight crept through the window and cast an eerie blue over the apartment, but Jackson wasn't there. No rat, no dog, no roommate. Nothing had made the noise, and no one to have called back to me. Maybe I should have been scared, but honestly, I was irritated. He was still trying to mess with me, and I just wasn't in the mood. I walked across the hall to his door and knocked on it aggressively. "Jack," I almost shouted, but thought better. I kept my tone firm and knocked again. "Jack, what the fuck, man?" Silence. I pressed my ear against his door. "Jack," I said again with a softer tone. He didn't respond. I tried his knob. His door wasn't locked. And as I turned the handle, this creeping dread filled me that something awful was waiting for me on the other side of that door. "Hey man, are you alright in there?" I slowly pushed the door open, and as the room slowly came into view, I saw Jackson sitting on his bed with his back to me. His posture was stiff like before, while he was watching the movie, hands on his knees, his body still as a statue. "Dude, what the hell is..." My words caught in my throat as the rest of the room came into view. I still can't fully believe what I saw standing there. A figure stood next to Jack. Tall, I would guess almost 7 feet. A sheet was draped over it like an old ghost costume, but without the eye holes, just a white sheet with what looked to be a person underneath. "I'm fine," Jackson spoke, but not alone. The thing underneath the sheet spoke with him in unison. Its gravelly, rotten voice tangled with his. "I'm just hanging out with my new friend." I almost screamed, but it was so goddamn scared that at the moment I was frozen in place. Something about this made me realize this was no joke. The thing underneath the sheet gave off the worst air of danger I'd ever felt in my life, like staring down the barrel of a gun. He came knocking the other night. They both spoke. The thing just a half second before Jack, though, like it was guiding his voice. I let him in. He likes it here. So warm and inviting. I backed away slowly. A terror filled me and told me to flee. I felt like if I ran, it would chase me, like locked eyes with a predator in the wild. "We can all be friends now, the best of friends," Jackson says. "You're easy to scare." It was speaking alone now. "Show me." With that, it moved across the room, then it was directly in front of me. It didn't walk or run. It was like it fucking fast-forwarded. Startled, I stumbled backwards into the wall behind me, cracking my head on the frame of a picture. I scrambled to my feet and looked up. Jackson was once again wearing that stiff smile and standing next to this thing, this intruder. "Come on, brother," they said together. "Let's all watch something scary." The sheet lifted ever so slightly, and a gaunt gray arm slid from underneath. Thin, bony fingers reached out for me, snagging the collar of my shirt as I attempted to bolt down the hallway and to the front door. I heard the fabric rip as I tore myself free and sprinted to the exit. "We can all live here together. No need to run." The voice got muddier, uglier. It sounded like it was underwater. Distorted, shredded vocal cords. I flung open the front door and flew into the hallway. The hall lights burned my eyes for a second as I ran to the stairs. All around me, at every apartment door, I heard knocking. As I tore my way down the hallway, I saw some people opening their doors to find out what was going on. Each of them went blank as soon as they did. I watched some of them fling the door open, ready to scream at whoever was knocking so late, but their expression dropped and their eyes went as glassy as Jack's. I jumped down and skipped 3 or 4 steps at a time, my bare feet slapping against the cold vinyl floors at each of the building's hallways. More and more doors opened, people standing frozen at the threshold, and those tall, sheet-covered entities standing next to them. Some of them were guiding them back to their homes. Some just watched me as I moved quickly. I burst out through the front door and into the warm night air. I must have ran 3 or 4 blocks before the realization hit me that I was in my pajamas. No phone, no wallet, no keys, no shoes, and no idea what to do. I ended up finding an all-night diner that let me use their phone. I thought about calling the cops, but what do I say? Ghosts have taken over my apartment building. The residents are hypnotized, possessed. Nothing I could say would sound sane. I would get treated like a fucking crackhead. I called my sister. I wasn't even sure what to say to her. I told her something was wrong with Jackson. He was acting crazy, and I was not comfortable staying in the apartment anymore. I've been here for 3 days now. I don't know what to do anymore. At the urging of my sister, I called the police to at least do a wellness check on Jackson. I was terrified to send anyone to that apartment building, but they told us they checked on him and everything seemed fine. He answered all their questions normally. Told them he had pulled a bad joke on me, and he was okay. This was not a joke, and I feel like I'm going crazy. My sister Ashley and her husband are urging me to just go home and talk it out with him, or at least get my things. I don't know what to do though. I feel like I'm losing my mind. My daughter keeps asking about the man on the floorboards. We live in a 5th floor apartment. We moved into this apartment in February. Just me and my daughter, Ivy. It's not much, but it's ours. Fifth floor, decent view. Rent just barely affordable. The building is old, with creaky pipes and paper-thin walls, but it's quiet. No one bothers us. Ivy is 4. She's bright and weird in the best way. Loves bugs. Talks to stuffed animals like they're old friends. Invents strange stories on the fly. I've always encouraged her imagination. Kids need that, especially after what we've been through. At first, it was just normal play. She'd crawl on the floor with her dolls, pressed her ear to the wood like she was listening to something. I asked her once what she was doing. She told me he talks funny when he's sleepy. I didn't think much of it. I thought she was mimicking a TV character or something. A few days later, while brushing her teeth, she pointed to the floor and asked if I could tell the man to stop watching her. I froze, not scared, just thrown. What man? I asked. She pointed at the floor again. The man who lives under the wood. I gave her a confused smile. Honey, there's nobody under there. We're on the 5th floor, remember? She didn't respond, just rinsed and spat like nothing happened. That night I checked the floor while she was sleeping. The boards were dusty but solid. No gaps, no loose panels. Still, I knelt down and tapped a few spots. Hollow, but not unusual. Old floors always sound like that. Over the next few weeks, Ivy started avoiding the hallway, stepping around specific boards like they were hot. She stopped sleeping on her bed and would sneak into mine without saying a word. When I asked her why, she just whispered, "He gets louder at night." I started keeping the TV on while she fell asleep. White noise, comfort. Still, I'd catch her glancing toward the floor in the middle of a show, like she was watching or waiting for something. Then 2 nights ago, I woke to a loud pop, like a board snapping under weight. I rushed to her room. She was sitting upright in bed, wide-eyed, staring at the floor. I asked what happened. She pointed to a spot near the corner of the room. One of the floorboards was raised slightly, barely noticeable, but it hadn't been like that before. I pressed down on it. It gave a little, like something beneath it had pushed upward. "Did you drop something under there?" I asked. Ivy didn't answer. She just whispered, "You touched his door." Last night I barely slept. Every creak in the building made me tense. I turned on every light, sat in the living room until morning. This morning I went to the kitchen and made a cup of coffee. Found a piece of paper tucked under a cereal box. Ivy's drawing. Crayon. Unlined notebook paper. A stick figure girl stood in a square room. was drawn in a pit of jagged lines, reaching upward with arms too long for its body. In the corner of the drawing was a sentence written in shaky, childish letters. He said, "You shouldn't have touched his door. I'm not sure if I'm afraid more that Ivy drew it, or that she didn't." I thought my wife was losing her mind until I realized it was me. The first time I noticed something was off, it was her laughter. Not the joyful kind, low, halting, like something breaking apart. I'd hear it late at night, always coming from the living room. When I asked her about it, she'd shrug and say she hadn't laughed at all. Stress, maybe. "You've been working so much." She wasn't wrong. I'd been pushing myself hard at the firm, burning through 12-hour days. But it wasn't just the laughter. Small things started piling up. Missing books, rearranged furniture, lights left on when I knew I'd turned them off. "Are you rearranging the house?" I asked one evening, after noticing our bookshelf looked different. "I haven't touched it," she replied. A flicker of something in her voice. Fear? Guilt? I brushed it off. The tipping point came late Tuesday. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of scratching. My wife wasn't in bed. I found her in the basement, crouched over the floor, carving something into the concrete with a screwdriver. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded. She turned slowly, startled, like she hadn't even realized I was there. Her eyes were wide, red-rimmed, her hands trembling. I don't know," she whispered. I pulled her away and brought her back to bed, trying to convince myself it was sleepwalking or stress. But something about her face, the haunted look, like she was afraid of herself, made my skin crawl. The next day, I searched the house while she was out. That's when I found the tapes. 12 unmarked VHS tapes, crammed into a shoebox in the attic. The first one I played made my stomach drop. It was me, sitting at a desk, typing. Easter dinner, sleeping. Hours of me, filmed from angles that didn't make sense. Inside my office, my car, our bedroom. On one tape, I was sitting on the couch, turning my head sharply as if I'd heard something. The camera panned to the doorway where my wife stood, holding the screwdriver from the basement. I confronted her that night. "Why are you recording me?" I shouted, holding out the tapes. Her face crumpled, tears spilling out. "Recording you? You've been following me. I found those tapes weeks ago." Her voice broke, and she fled the house before I could respond. I stood there, dumbfounded, following her. I wasn't sane, but her words gnawed at me. I stayed up all night, pacing, until curiosity got the better of me. I played the last tape in the box. It was dated the day before. On it, I watched myself sitting at the kitchen table, writing in a notebook I didn't recognize. My handwriting filled the pages. I didn't own that notebook. The most recent entry sent chills down my spine. She knows I know. I tore the house apart until I found the notebook, stuffed in a drawer beneath the sink. The pages were filled with logs of her movements. 7:30 a.m. Leaves for work. 12:15 p.m. Comes home for lunch. Doesn't see me watching. I couldn't remember writing any of it. My hands trembled as I flipped to the last page. Tomorrow she'll leave. Don't stop her. The next morning, her side of the closet was empty. She was gone. She'd taken everything except a piece of paper on the pillow. For her words were scrawled across it in my handwriting. Who is watching you? I searched the house again. Every room, every drawer. Then I checked the tapes. All of them were blank. That night I woke up to the sound of laughter from the living room. Low, halting. My laughter. I wake up in a different reality every time I sleep. I don't know where else to post this. Maybe I just need to get it all down before I lose my mind. Or maybe, just maybe someone out there is going through the same thing. I don't know when it started. The first time I noticed something was off, it was small. Tiny details I could ignore if I tried hard enough. Like how my favorite brand of cereal had a slightly different logo, or how my coworker's last name changed overnight. At first, I figured I was just misremembering things. We all do that, right? The Mandela effect. The brain plays tricks, making us swear something was different than it actually was. I shrugged it off. But it keeps happening. Every time I went to sleep, the world around me changed. It was obvious at first, just enough to make me doubt myself. The streets in my neighborhood weren't quite in the right place. A movie I knew I had seen before suddenly didn't exist. My mom's birthday moved by a day. Still, I didn't panic. I figured it was just stress. Or maybe my sleep was being affected by something. I made excuses. Tried to rationalize. Until the day I woke up and found my brother sitting on my couch, controller in hand, playing Call of Duty like he used to. My brother has been dead for 6 years. I froze. I couldn't even breathe. I stood there watching him, waiting for my brain to catch up and make sense of what I was seeing. Yo, he said without looking up. Finally up. You were out cold, man. My stomach twisted. My brother had died in a car accident when he was 12. I went to his funeral. I saw his body in the casket. I grieved for him. And yet, there he was, acting like nothing had ever happened. I forced myself to speak. Bro, that was when he finally looked at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. What? It was him. His voice, his stupid, lopsided grin, scar above his eyebrow from when he fell off his skateboard as a kid. It felt like I was going insane. I had to get out of there. I muttered something about needing air and stumbled outside. My legs barely carried me. My hands were shaking. My breath was erratic. I leaned against a tree, trying to force my brain to work. In this world, he'd never gotten that car. Maybe I never called him that night. Maybe something I had done in my original world had changed. And that one tiny thing was enough to keep him alive here. That was when I knew for sure this wasn't just in my head. I was shifting realities. After that, the changes became more drastic. One morning I woke up and saw President Kanye West to hold emergency press conference. I thought that had to be a joke, a deep fake, an internet prank. There he was, at the White House talking about foreign policy, like it was just another day. The next time the moon was gone. I don't mean hidden behind the clouds. I mean it literally didn't exist. I asked people about it, and they looked at me like I was crazy. The tides still moved. The night were still dark, but no one remembered there ever being a moon in the sky. I tried to figure it out. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything I could remember before I went to sleep. I experimented, stayed up for days at a time. Stayed up for days at a time, used caffeine to keep myself awake, but it never mattered. The moment I finally gave in to exhaustion and fell asleep, I woke up somewhere new. No matter what I did, I couldn't stay in one place. Then, just as I was starting to accept my fate, it got worse. It started following me. I first noticed it in a reality that seemed almost normal. The only difference I could find is that all the traffic lights were blue instead of red and green. That was it. No dead brothers, no missing moon, just blue traffic lights. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. It was tall, too tall. Its body twisted in ways that made my stomach turn. It didn't have a face, at least not one that made sense to my brain. Every time I blinked, it seemed to shift, like it wasn't bound by the laws of reality as everything else was. No one else saw it. I tested it. I asked a stranger if they saw anything weird, standing at the end of the street. They just looked at me funny and walked away. That's when I knew. Whatever it was here for me. The next time I fell asleep, I woke up in a new reality. And there it was. It didn't speak. It doesn't run. It just stands there, watching, always just far enough away that I can pretend I'm imagining it. But I know better. Every single time I shift, it finds me. I don't know what it wants. Maybe it's hunting me. Maybe it's the will of the universe itself, sent to fix the mistake of me. 'Cause let's be honest, something like this isn't supposed to happen. I shouldn't be slipping between worlds like a glitch in a broken game. I've been using my ability to run. Every time I see it, I force myself to sleep, hoping I'll land somewhere safe. But the truth is, I don't think I'll ever find a safe place. I don't think I can keep running forever. Eventually, I'm going to wake up in a world that kills me first. Or the thing, whatever it is, will finally catch me. And the worst part, there's no reason to believe that there's a reality out there with the answers I need. I've already accepted I'm never going home. So I'm posting this here because maybe someone else has seen the signs. Maybe you've noticed little things you can't quite explain. If you have, don't ignore them. I'm going to sleep now. I just hope that wherever I wake up next isn't worse than here. It's digging beneath my bedroom. My dad never let me have my own phone. He already lost one son to an online predator, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. I tried to explain that I wasn't like Kyle. I didn't want to meet up with anyone from the internet. All I wanted was to message my friends and watch YouTube videos on the bus. But Dad wouldn't have it. Since Kyle disappeared, I barely left my room. When dinner was ready, I waited until Dad was finished eating before I grabbed my plate. Easier that way, without him watching. If I ate too slowly, he'd snap. What, not good enough for you? Before, Kyle used to redirect our old man's anger at himself, shielding me from the worst of it. He'd taken a beating once when I knocked over a can of red paint in the garage. Whenever someone asked about the purple bruise under his eye, he'd say it came from playing hockey. I never got the chance to thank him for that. I worked part-time, bagging groceries at the Quick Mart, and saved $200. One of my friends, Devin, sold me a cheap Motorola smartphone. I added people's socials, installed YouTube, Spotify, a few other apps, and set up this Reddit profile. I couldn't risk Dad finding out about the phone, so I pried up the floorboards in our room, my bedroom, to hide it. I had to keep reminding myself that without Kyle, there was no our room, our desk, or our wardrobe. It was all mine now. That's all it would ever be. With steady internet access, my morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I Googled Kyle's name. Recent articles popped up, and a headline on an obscure news site froze me. Father investigated in missing child's case. The photo showed Dad stepping in or out of his Lexus. Suddenly his boots echoed on the staircase. I slid the phone back under the floorboards and hopped into bed, pulling the covers to my chin. Dad leaned in my doorway, slurring, "Good night, Bailey." Lately, I'd caught him hiding a flask of whiskey in his jacket. It hadn't been this bad since the early months of the divorce. "Good night, Dad," I replied, but a question escaped me. Is there any new information about Kyle? His expression sobered. "You know the rule. We don't talk about him. It's not for you to worry about." When he left, he kept the door ajar. I considered closing it, but if he went to the bathroom during the night and found it shut, he'd chew me out. I rolled onto my side and tried to sleep. I was beginning to drift off, my thoughts bleeding into hazy dreams, when the sound started. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It reminded me of nails on skin or a shovel in the dirt. I looked down at the floorboards I'd hidden the phone under. The scratching stopped. It was as if it were saying, "Yes, it's me. I'm here." Had I left Spotify playing by mistake? Carefully, I slipped from the bed and crouched by the floor, glancing at the door to be sure Dad wasn't watching. Pressed my ear to the boards and listened. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then I recognized the sound. Fingers clawing through soil, as if there was something climbing up from beneath the house. I jumped back into bed and closed my eyes, desperately trying to ignore the sound. It was an absurd thought, not one a rational mind interprets, yet I couldn't bring myself to lift the floorboard and look inside. The next morning, I asked Dad what it could be. He had an immediate answer. Rats. They'd probably nested in the walls and floor. One must have fallen into a gap and trapped itself. Night after night, the scraping continued. I wondered how long a rat could survive. 5 days, a week. By the end of 2 weeks, I knew it couldn't be a rat. The sound grew louder and closer. At times, there was no wind outside. I'd hear a weak, whistling breaths creeping up from the floor last night when everything changed. Scratching began as usual, around 2 or 3 in the morning, but after a few hours it stopped. Silence stretched, and for a peaceful moment, I thought it may have stopped. But then the scraping resumed, rougher, fingernails against wood. The loose floorboard wobbled as something shifted beneath it. Too terrified to look, I grabbed a stack of textbooks and placed them onto the board. The scratching continued. I stayed awake until dawn, and at first light, I finally removed the textbooks and lifted the floorboard. Inside, my phone was gone, fallen into what had replaced it, an arm-sized hole leading into the blackness. My heart pounded as I stared down the void. Without my phone, I had no light to shine inside and see how deep it was. So instead, I leaned closer and hovered my ear over the hole, breathing the weak whistling breaths I heard earlier, like lungs were filled with dirt. My pulse quickened. It couldn't be true. It'd be ridiculous to even consider it. But I found myself confronting the possibility something was buried down there. At school the next day, I borrowed Devin's phone and called my number. Devin gave a short laugh. You think the thing in the hole knows how to use a phone? The phone rang 7 times, then clicked as someone answered. Hello, I whispered, a voice I knew all too well. Kyle's voice cracked through the static.